let's talk about why everybody needs to own Amazon stock, right? And you should root for any dips in Amazon overall. Here's the deal, okay? Now, this is a stock I acquired a lot of shares of in 22 and 23. I got to over 1,000 shares in the public account. I would love to even own more Amazon, to be honest. So far, we're up 71% on the stock. There's a lot of reasons to own Amazon. Let me just go over some of the biggest reasons. Everyone needs to own Amazon stock, okay? One is, we're still in the early stage of Amazon's profit cycle. Amazon, this is a company that's lost money for the longest time. We're still in the very infant stages, actually, of Amazon being profitable, making money. Look at Amazon's profit margins. Look at Amazon's net margins. They are horrific, okay? We're still in the very early days of this company actually making money. This is still a company that's really focused on market share, growing revenues over profits, okay? So keep in mind, the profits you're seeing today from Amazon are little money, are very little money from where Amazon's profits are going to be, and that earnings per share is going to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, okay? This is still early stage when it comes to that. Revenue growth, we're later stage. Profit growth, we're early stage. You got to understand that. Second up here, the e-commerce business is going to grow for years and years. Like, when does the e-commerce business stop growing? I don't know, but it's so far from now. I don't even know when it is. 2030s? 2040s, 2050s, like the business, everybody orders more and more stuff on Amazon every year pretty much, and that's going to stay that way for a long time to go in the future, right? AWS, when does AWS stop growing? Another thing that I'm like, I don't know, like when you look at how much on-premises is still out there versus cloud, the cloud business has another 10, 20, 30 years of growth ahead. That's ridiculous, okay? AWS has growth for the longest time to go in the future. Advertising business has growth for the longest time to go in the future, right? They have a membership model like Costco, which is beautiful. When you think about Prime service, right? Very similar to like a Costco membership, which is very sticky. And then when you think about AWS and locking in clients for years on contracts, I mean, a lot of times AWS contracts can be many, many years. And once you get on AWS, you're not going to switch. Like the chances you're going to switch from AWS to something else is very low probability. So you're kind of like locked in, kind of like a membership model, right? And the sixth reason is it's the scariest competitor in the world. Here's the deal, okay? If Amazon came out tomorrow and Andy Jassy said, we want to grow market share massively in home improvement. And so we're going to spend $5 billion this year on running ads to increase our home improvement business. What do you think is going to happen to Home Depot stock and Lowe's stock the very next day? Stocks are going to crash massively, epically. Epic crash the very next day. That's the scariest competitor. If Amazon says, we're going to push like crazy into food delivery over this next 3 years, and we're going to do whatever it takes to grow massive market share here, the grocery stocks are crashing the very next day. That's the only company I can think of that is that scary, that they will force other companies' stock to crash the very next day. If Amazon comes out and says, we want to be huge in auto parts, so we're going to push heavy into this business over this next 2 to 3 years, AutoZone and O'Reilly stock are crashing the very next day. And that's the only company you can really think of that just, if they just say we're about to grow massively here, stocks will crash. Like that's crazy. That's crazy dominant of a company when you're that powerful and you can literally crash other company stocks. They did it to they've done it to so many industries over time. That's crazy, right? Now, next thing up here, Amazon, number 2 in revenue right now in the world, right? They're going to go number 1, my estimation is either 2025 or 2026. They're going to go number 1 in terms of revenue overall in the world. And then they're going to head up toward $1 trillion plus in revenue, which is absolutely incredible. And when you're bringing in $1 trillion plus in revenue, it's going to be a lot of room to grow your EPS over the coming years, right? Next up here, if we think about the leadership at Amazon, right, the 2 most influential people, obviously, at Amazon over the past 20 years have been Jeff Bezos, clearly, right? Now, he's not the CEO anymore, and he doesn't want to run the day-to-day operations, which I can understand. He's enjoying life, right? But he is the executive chairman of the company. So he still is heavily involved in kind of the overall strategy, who are the executives of the company, and those sorts of things. So Jeff Bezos, although he's not in that day-to-day operations, he still has a huge fingerprint on what's actually going on with Amazon, right? And the second guy who's been so instrumental in Amazon's success over the years is Andy Jassy. He's the current president and CEO of the company, right? And Andy Jassy's been a huge component of why AWS became such a massive, giant business and so successful, right? And so if I think about Jeff Bezos, he should have at least another 10, 20 years on the board. And then if I think about Andy Jassy, he should have at least another 5-10 years of being the big dog at the company. There's really no reason for him to leave anytime soon, right? And so when I think about that, that puts the company in very good hands, right? I always speak about, Apple, they don't have their two big dogs anymore that really, are the ones that really made that company who they are, the two big dogs being Steve Jobs, Johnny Ive. But if I think about Amazon, they still got the two big dogs around here, right? Which is absolutely phenomenal. And let me ask you, does he look done anytime soon? Does he look like he's ready to jump off the board of directors? No. The man looks prime, okay? He looks ready for prime time. He looks like a man who would take advantage of today's deal, okay? He looks like would Jeff Bezos not take advantage of today's deal? Of course he would take advantage of today's deal, okay? That's pinned comment down there, folks. Now let's talk about why I think the stock might be much closer to a very nice recovery than a lot of people expect, okay? So let's discuss this. Now, so this is 1000xstocks.com. This is my personal very expensive tool I've built over the past long bit of time here. Only I have access to this. But in regards to this tool, I have a bunch of cool stuff you can do with it. And one of those is you can compare stocks side by side and kind of where those stocks are trading at on a massive amount of different metrics. And I just kind of screenshotted some of them here, right? Now, people like to put Tesla into the category of Ford and GM, right? And they say, Tesla's massively overvalued. Look at where Ford and GM are at. And look where Tesla, well, a few things, right? Tesla's got completely different gross margins than those automakers. Tesla's also got completely different net margins than all those companies, right? So that's something very important I think you should factor in. That's very important, right? Tesla's margins are way different. Even in bad times, their margins are way different than those companies. Never mind in good times. We know Tesla can have margins 20+% and just blow these guys out of the water. Now, the next thing to think about, right, is Ford and GM, like, once again, the EV transition is going on. If you're not sold on that, in that transition over this next decade, I mean, I don't know what I can do to sell you on that. Like, it's just impossible. Like, you're either on the bandwagon of EVs are going to get way more popular over this next decade and they're going to take over more and more market share year after year after year, or you just, think we're going to all drive internal combustion engines forever, which is not going to happen, okay? So the bottom line is Ford and GM are not set up the best for the EV revolution. We do know that, right? That's why these companies are having a partner with Tesla for the supercharger network. So I think Ford and GM should trade at massive discounts because I think there should be real question marks about how those companies do, being that we're changing to self-driving vehicles, we're changing to EVs as a society, we're changing to, charging networks, and we're changing from the dealership model to direct to consumer more, right? And so when you're having to go through all these different transitions, I don't even know if Ford and GM can be around 10, 15, 20 years from now. I think it's maybe they are, but I just think it's a big question mark. So the companies you have to kind of compare more to Tesla would be companies like Rivian and Lucid, right? But the problem with comparing Tesla to these companies is Tesla just is night and day better than these companies across the board. If you look at the forward P of Rivian and Lucid, they're negative because they're going to lose money over the next year, and a lot of money. Trailing 12-month P, there is no trailing 12-month P on these stocks because they lose a fortune, right? If we look at the gross margins of these companies, they're negative 46% and negative 160%, respectively, for Rivian and Lucid. If you look at net margins of Rivian and Lucid, we're talking negative 115% and negative 416%. Those numbers are so mind-blowing, it's hard to even fathom. So, and if you look at where Lucid's trading at, Lucid stock is now in the gulag. Rivian stock is getting closer to the gulag. I think Rivian stock recently is $8 a share. So now it's looking more and more like a potential that maybe Lucid or Rivian go bankrupt in the next few years, right? I wouldn't bank on that, but it's definitely a realistic potential. So even if you look at Lucid and Rivian, I don't think they're the best comps. Their businesses are a disaster. Their margins are a disaster. And there's real serious question marks about if those companies will even exist a couple of years from now, right? So I don't think this is good comps for Tesla. And I don't think you can comp Tesla against anybody that's in the automotive sector, whether they're EV or not. Because you're either having to comp them against old school dinosaurs, that there's question marks if those businesses will even exist 10, 15, 20 years from now, or you have to comp them against the new age, which is just a complete dumpster fire, just to be quite frank, okay? So the companies, there's two companies you got to actually comp Tesla against, in my personal opinion. Those two companies are Amazon and Nvidia. Okay, I think those are fair comps for Tesla. Obviously, totally different sectors and where those companies compete. But if I think about the employee forces, if I think about all the game-changing technology, if I think about those companies kind of looking to the future, always focused on growth, right? Market share. I think about game-changing companies. I think about Amazon and Nvidia, right? To go along with Tesla. And if you look at this, Nvidia, it looks like the best deal by far of those three stocks, right? If you look at the gross margins, the net margins, you look at the trailing 12-month PE is, technically as Tesla is the best there. So that might not be the one Nvidia wins, but everything else, PEG ratio, forward PE, Nvidia wins it all, right? And also revenue growth for this year, Nvidia is going to win that. But the important thing to factor in there is not as simple as just looking at all that and saying Nvidia is for sure the better deal. Also keep in mind, Nvidia has been going through an ultra great time for their business model. Tesla has been going through an ultra bad time for their business model. So I would not expect forever and ever to be as great for Nvidia as it's right now, okay? And I also think it's a big mistake to assume that for Tesla, everything's going to be as bad as it is right now, it will be into the future. That's not realistic at all, right? Amazon's kind of in the middle between those two. It's kind of like, it's an okay time for Amazon, certainly not the most bullish time, certainly not the most bearish time in regards to that, right? And so when I think about Tesla, I think about what are these numbers going to be when Tesla's back into a great time again, right? So that's something to factor in there. Now, what happens here? What happens during this time period, the back half of the year, right? Why are we much closer to, let's call it a nice recovery than I think a lot of people expect? Well, in the back half of the year, we have so much going on. One, I believe margins will improve in the back half of the year. The Cybertruck ramp will have happened. You're going to start having, obviously, the employee reduction start to help these numbers out pretty dramatically, right? And you're probably looking at prices higher for vehicles produced overall for Tesla, right? So I think the probabilities that margins start to improve in the back half of the year are pretty dramatic. I think there's pretty high probability that revenues will improve as well. And I think it's also very high probability that net income improves, especially when you factor in the layoffs and, obviously it's going to hurt this current quarter we're in. But if you think about the back half of the year, a lot of that should already be done at that point in time. So net income, revenue, and margins, that's a trifecta, should all start going up in the back half of the year. What happens when a company goes from the trifectas all getting worse to the trifectas all getting better? What happens? Usually the stock price explodes to the upside in that sort of situation, right? Now, on top of that, we have a complete wild card. On August 8th, Tesla's going to show off the robotaxi. Huge day in the company's history. I mean, if I think about the three most important days in Tesla's history in terms of, products they've shown off, the Model 3, when they showed that off, the Cybertruck, when they showed that off, and the third is this day. This is absolutely going to be massive. Now, what does this do for the stock price? Well, here's the thing, okay? Retail is probably going to be able to get very excited, retail investors, right, about this day. Wall Street is going to be a mixed bag. Some Wall Street, they can't even really conceive of the possibility of robotaxis anytime soon. So some of them are so far off the boat right now that, they can't even swim to this thing, even if they had a life raft, okay? So some of those are over there. You got other folks on Wall Street. I've heard a few analysts that are actually starting to model in robotaxi numbers, right? Which I think matters. You will have some that will get very hyped about this. The Kathy Woods of the world, right? That have been talking about the robotaxi opportunity for a long time. The next day or the next week, she'll be out there on CNBC interviews talking about it and how much it's going to produce and all those sorts of things. So how that affects the stock price, if I had to guess, it's going to be more positive than negative. There's no way I see coming out of that robotaxi event and it affects the company negative. That just wouldn't make sense. Because the people that are already off the boat is not going to change their mind because they already don't believe in it anyways, right? And the other people that do believe in it are just going to get more sold. So if anything, that event's probably, I would say, a positive. I think it's just a big question of how positive. Is that like help the stock go up an extra 5 or 10% the next few weeks after that? Or is it more like a 15, 20, 25% move after that? But the net is definitely a positive for Tesla overall in regards to that, right? Now, the other thing the robotaxi event's going to do is create massive publicity for Tesla. Everybody is going to be talking about that for at least the next few days after, if not the next week or two after. What did Tesla show off? Oh my gosh, the robotaxi. It's going to be everywhere. It's going to be all over TikTok, Instagram. It's going to be all over X. It's going to be all over YouTube. It's going to be all over everything, okay? And so, it keeps Tesla's brand name out there. I can tell you that much. It keeps Tesla in the conversation, which Elon Musk is phenomenal. I think this is the best CEO in the world at keeping Tesla always in the conversation. I think it's absolutely magical kind of, what he does there. And so, once again, I think this is more of a positive, certainly, than a negative in regards to the situation. So when I look at this whole Tesla situation, I think sunrise is coming. I think we're in the, we're kind of in that dark period. And as they say, it's always darkest before the dawn. And that's a situation in regards to Tesla. Sunrise is coming, brighter days are ahead. And I just think those brighter days are much sooner than a lot of people are realizing right now. And I think they'll find that out in the back half of this year. Time will tell in regards to the situation, okay? Guys, 1000X. I know I've gotten a sick amount of people reaching out to me. What's going on? You're going to release this to the public? What's going on? So I'll let people start joining a wait list for this, okay? So on the front page, you can apply for access. And it's a tool I really built for myself that's been pretty dang epic. So I'll probably make like a monthly plan or a yearly plan for people that are looking to join and get access to that tool. But I even created a feature on it where I can listen to any conference call. I could literally just type in a ticker symbol and listen to a conference call right away, which is sweet because I hate having to, go to a company's investor relations, go through all the crap to get to that conference call. And so I even put that feature in there, and I got so many other cool things. I'm just adding this tool. It's very expensive, and it's been put together for quite a while, but it's just a fun thing. So anyways, if you want to join the wait list there, 1000xstocks.com. But in terms of that, my private group members, they'll get first access to becoming members in there. Then after that, it'll become Patreon. People that are in my Patreon will get access next. Then it'll be YouTube subscribers, and it'll kind of be everybody else after that. But, yeah, it's a pretty sick tool. I mainly built it for myself, though. It's freaking cool, man. So anyways, guys, appreciate you joining me. It's one of the advantages of having money is you can, just spend money and build projects and do stuff like that. I will say that's one of the cool things of money. And like, hey, what if we built a custom tool that's exactly what I need for all, like, man, that's the cool thing, okay? Anyways, guys, much love as always. Appreciate you joining me, and have a great day.